Good morning, everyone. So if you need a handout, they're being passed out in case you missed it in the back of the room. So one of the things that I coincidentally called this guide, putting it all together, and having sat through a number of sessions this week, I think it's the perfect title because there were things like transformational leadership, recruiting and retention, unlocking potential. All of those pieces really go hand in hand with what we're going to do today. So I just want to invite you to participate fully. I will say in the app, I did a very comprehensive guide. This is only 11 pages. It's a 32-page guide. I decided to save some trees, but you have the essence of what we're going to be doing today, which is full-on interactivity. So the first question that I have for you is, how many of you all have ever made a bad hire? Raise your hand. I was thinking all the hands might go up. So what happened, do you think? What do you think happened that caused that? Misjudgment? Okay, what else? Bad recommendation. Somebody's trying to get rid of somebody else and they want to give it to you. Okay, somebody else. Low staffing. Desperate hiring is the way I might say it. Okay, we're desperate, so we need a warm body in here just to fill that shift. Been there, done that, right? What else? Catfish you in an interview? Say more about that.
Meaning that they lied when they, in their interview.
They presented themselves, I'm going to say it differently. They presented themselves in one way, but when they showed up, it was something else, right? Somebody else. Something else. What other reason might you have made a poor judgment, or you thought you were hiring the right person, but when they finally showed up to show you who they were, it was not the right person? What did you miss? So some people say lack of planning. I was just trying to slip it into my day. It was just one more thing I had to do. I didn't give it the time and attention. Sometimes it's we actually had an interview panel and we didn't prepare them and they took that whole interview straight down because it was tough for them to get in. We're going to make it tough to get on board. We want to show them how it really is. Anything else that maybe was a bad hire? How many of you all do after action reviews when you hire somebody and think about, it could be 30, 60, 90 days later, and think about what went well with this interview and what didn't? What did we miss? Anybody? I highly recommend you do that. It won't take very long, 15 minutes or less, to be able to say, what did we miss in case you make that bad hire? Or what did we get right? Like, this person is amazing. We need 10 more of these if we're going to go ahead and build that dream team, which is really about all of us building the dream team. So that next hire that you make is either going to make the dream team or break the dream team. And sometimes we don't know, but I'm going to give you some hopefully helpful hints today on how you can keep that from happening. So I will just say my name is Kim Nugent. I had the opportunity to be able to, I am the Director of Talent and Organizational Development, and I also have a business at the same time. And my expert area is leadership, staff development, and mentorship. Mentorship across organizations, specifically for executive leaderships down to correctional officers, as well as inmates, as well as kitchen staff. So a variety of different things, but I've been doing this for a very long time, and my passion is really helping people see and grow in their careers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the first part of this morning, for the first hour, we're going to spend really drilling down on recruiting to see if there's something that you might just tweak a bit so you get that person right. The second, I hope to introduce you to at least 3 to 4 brand new concepts that you may not be using in your facility that could take you to the next level. The reason that's important to me is because I don't know if you've noticed, but the people you're hiring today, or might be, depending on how long you've been in corrections, might be a bit different than you. They might think differently. They might think about work differently. So how can we leverage who's coming in the door and get them to be and see this as being a real career, not a job on the way to something else? I'll try it. I'll see how it works out, but really this is not it. I'm going somewhere else. So again, we want to be able to change that perspective. So one of the things that we want to do when we're thinking about recruiting in particularly or hiring that best person is to be able to think ahead and to focus on those right traits. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to find it. Anybody will do. On the other hand, there you go. All right, and then the other thing I would say is never stop developing people. So you guys got into your positions because somebody believed in you. Somebody allowed you the opportunity to take on a little bit more, to learn something new. And sometimes that's a problem when you're in top leadership positions because you learn the hard way. You can do it better and faster than anybody else, and delegation sometimes is really hard. And so how do we give things away so that we can grow and develop our people? I want you to take a look at that second statement and tell me what you think that means. We usually hire people for what they know and terminate them for who they are. I know that's cold. But what does it mean? I'm going to walk over here. What do you think that means? Yes, absolutely. Their personalities might not mix well. They might be that person who's super negative, always complaining, doing the least amount of work, right? If they show up, they interviewed really well. They got that. They Googled the questions. They were really prepared, but that's not who they are. So how can we prevent that from happening? Now, sometimes when we hire somebody, part of it is gut, right? The gut check. But we want, and you're only going to get it right about 8% of the time if you're just dealing with your gut. Nothing wrong with that, your intuition, but you got to bring more to it than just that. Now, when you guys were interviewed, what made it a great interview? Think back to any of the interviews you've had along the way. What made it a great interview? Somebody raise their hand. What made it great? Had the experience, okay. How did they make you feel? He said relax. So they made it comfortable so he could share his experience. He felt good about that. Is that the kind of environment you have when they come to your facility and create that environment for the interview? So what's the cost of a bad hire? What's it cost you? Pardon me? I'm sorry. Time and money is what she said, absolutely. So we have this bad hire, we've let them go. What's happening back at the facility with the other people? What are they thinking? Overtime's great for 2 weeks, but after that I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not fun. So it's, again, thinking about that. But then there are some soft costs and some hard costs. So we know financially it costing the body, and we'd say anywhere from about 30 to 80% for that replacement cost. But the truth of the matter is it's costing you a lot more than that. She said time, which is really key. So the time for, if you are lucky enough to have an HR group, great. It's your time, it's the staff's time, it's everything else. It's really posting those wherever you happen to recruiting. And I really liked the lead card generation yesterday. I thought that was awesome. But again, it's going to cost us a lot of things, and we need to be able to pay attention. What is our retention rate? What is our turnover rate? I prefer to look in the positive. So I'm looking at retention. I'm not looking at turnover. Because whatever my retention is today, I want to be better off a year from now than I am right now. So what can I be doing to be able to do that? But these are all the people involved. When you lose a person, even if it's by your choice, and sometimes it is, it still costs all these people to contribute to being able to get that next person. And you know as well as I do that when you lose somebody, depending on how long they've been with you, you're losing some institutional knowledge. It took you a while to get them up to speed. They weren't productive the next day. I don't care if you're the most experienced person in the room. You go from one facility on a Friday and you go to another facility on a Monday, it's like starting all over. You have to get to know the people. Maybe there are new policies and procedures. Maybe there's new entrance requirements. Maybe, the rounding is different. There may be some differences and nuances that you have to learn. So you're not even as experienced as you are. It's not instantaneous. So what causes these bad hires? Sometimes we don't even know what we're looking for. We're just looking for anybody. We're desperate, which is never good. And I live by little sayings, and one of my favorite sayings is, desperation does not become me. And so I have to think about, yes, I know I need someone, I know it's rough right now, but I want that next person, because that next person is going to influence everybody, at a minimum in a pod or in the unit. Possibly, we lack the interview skills that we needed, or our team lacked those interview skills and we didn't train them to do that. We're just feeling we have to fill the position, and they just don't fit. Like, we have a culture in our facility, and they just don't fit. So we want to make sure that obviously we have the policies and procedures, and we have a team, if it's you, of one or maybe many people to be able to get this person hired as quickly as possible. So sometimes, and right now in the state of Texas, we know that we have staffing shortages. And I want to kind of lay the groundwork where I'm going on retention. So I know it's frustrating, but I want to break it down to data, and that is this. It is a mathematical equation. Baby boomers had many more babies, and most of them are retired, not all of them. So that next generation that's coming in, Generation X, had a smaller amount of babies. That means those numbers can't fill what we need. So once you understand that, you have to step back and say, okay, that is what I'm dealt with right now. What can I do differently? So I say that retention is the new recruitment. So how do we keep the people that we have? And then also allowing new people to learn about this industry as a possible career, not a stepping stone to something else. What have you noticed about different generations? I'm not doing generations talk today, but what have you noticed? Technology changes, for sure. What else? How they communicate, what they hold dear and near to them, what else? Without embarrassing anyone, if you feel comfortable raising your hand, how many of you are in the baby boomer generation? 46 to 64 born. Okay? What about the next generation, Generation X? Okay? What about Generation Y? A few. Millennials, AKA millennials. You can raise your hand proud. And what about Generation Z? Wow, impressive. So I will tell you that Generation Z is coming in hard and strong. So there's an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. But where they're looking for a position or what they are looking for in terms of a career, I'm going to share that with you in a few slides. It's very different. If you think, and I'm sure you don't, but if you think, hey, you have a job, you're getting a paycheck, that's really all you need, you are not going to retain anybody on your team. So again, one of the things that he said was definitely technology. The way we communicate with the different generations, there's an expectation that's different with each generation for sure. And what they're looking for, like the top 5 reasons that I want to stay with you, are very different for Generation Z and Generation Y. So obviously, there's a lot of candidate sourcing. As I said, I liked really hearing yesterday about the lead generation, thought that was really cool. But you have lots of things to do. But I'm thinking that today, many of you all may have someone who, first of all, most of you are really involved in your communities. And you're out there and they know who you are. But being able to expose children, middle school children, high school children, even entry-level college students as a possibility that this is a great career, you can't start too soon. You're building the pipeline for the future. And you may think, I don't have time, but if you are at a 22% staffing ratio right now and you're missing people, you may want to think about that. The best place to look, though, quite frankly, is your internal people. Like when they first come in, do you see something in them that they don't even see in themselves? So in the second part, we're going to talk about employee motivation. And I know that you're going to learn some things that maybe you've never considered before about what motivates people when they come to work. So it's much more expensive to go outside and hire someone. It's so much easier to grow and develop the people that you already have working there. For some of you all, you have really grown your careers over time, and that is because somebody saw something in you that you might not have even seen in yourself. So let's talk about this, get down to some real basics. So when somebody comes in, sometimes we go so fast on that resume, and then we make a mistake. I thought I read this, but it didn't really say that. So if you take the job description that you have and you take a look at that resume and you compare the two, what are the gaps? If you have someone, let's say you're hiring for the business office and they have some misspellings and some missing details and things like that, probably not the person you're looking for. You're not going to discount them. You're still going to talk to them. You're still going to interview them. But again, is their career going backwards? Is it going forwards? Or is this the first opportunity that they've ever had to get a job and they want to see if this is something for them? Now, I know if you're in law enforcement, you absolutely are looking for those employment gaps. Where have you been the last 5 years? Well, I was detained. So again, thinking about those things, not skipping over those things and asking those questions is really, really important. Okay. Sometimes it's you, meaning sometimes you guys are looking for that next step in your career, right? And so they posted something, you see it for yourself, you're going to go for it. I think it's really important not to assume anything these days. So even though you've been working at the facility and you are very clear that even, the entire agency knows who you are and the great work that you're doing, do not assume that's going to get you the job. You still have to update your resume. You still have to create a cover letter if they require it because they don't know. So again, a lot of people, because they've been doing this job for a long period of time, just assume, hey, I'm here, I got it, why not? And I have seen lately quite a few deputy wardens in particular think they had it because they've grown their career inside law enforcement or corrections, and they didn't get it because they thought they had it. So they weren't hungry enough to go just do a little bit of work and update that resume and to be able to say, these are the other things that I've been doing. It is really your time to brag. I know it's a pain, but it's really worth it. So one of the things, according to SHRM, is that we really need to focus on our competencies. What are the competencies that you're looking for, which are distinct from the job description itself, unless your job description actually says that? So one of the ways that we can get away from gut feelings is we can design, if your company doesn't or your agency doesn't already have this, design some behavioral-based interview questions so you can get at what is this person really done or have done in the past, not some theoretical. Well, if you were placed in this situation, no, you could make anything up all of the time, and that is not going to give you what you need to make a good decision. So we want to be able to do that. So we're going to actually, the reason that you have the guide in there, and you don't need it right now, but we're actually going to practice this because I want you to hear a couple of things that maybe you're not listening for right now that could really help you. A couple of little things. So how many of you all use, besides yourself when you're interviewing, have some people on your team part of an interview panel? Raise your hand. A few of you. Highly recommend it. Here's why. Because that person that you're thinking about hiring is going to work with those people. And it's really helpful if you train them, don't expect like they know what to do. If you had a set of questions, you're going to take question 1 and 2, you're going to take 3 and 4, you're going to take 5 and 6. I'm going to do the introduction, and then we'll close it out. That's it. You don't want to promise employment at all. That is not what we're doing here. But again, it's really, really important. You do not want to go to the trouble to bring this person in and have somebody on that interview panel just take it sideways or down, and then they go, you know what? I don't like the feel of these people here. I'm going to go work some other place. The other thing that I heard yesterday that I think is important, but I want to say it a little differently, and that is, it really has to do with mindset. If you think in your community you can't find anybody, that will be true. If you think in your community you can find somebody, that will be true also. And the reason that's important is because, I'll use Chick-fil-A as the example. There's tons of books out there on the market about the success of Chick-fil-A. I'm not talking about their hourly salary, but you take a look at that. Who are they competing with? They're competing with every other fast food company out there or any entry-level job for a teenager to come into. But have you noticed Chick-fil-A is a little different? You know why? They hire tough. They have at least 3 interviews for every teenager that they hire before they come in. And then they put together at least a 2-week training program for them before they actually allow them to interact with the public. And I say if Chick-fil-A can do it, we can do it. It's really that important. Okay, so this is really how we're going to prepare the team. As I said, we're going to give them the job description, the resume. We're definitely going to give them the questions that they're going to answer. Tell them how long you have. It's 45 minutes, an hour. However long you say your interview is going to be. You thank the person when they leave, and that's that. And then you all talk about what your impressions were. You don't want to start talking before then. Have people write some comments down about what did they hear, because you all hear things very differently. So this is one thing that I highly recommend. As you're asking your questions, you use the CAR response. How many of you ever used CAR? How many of you are listening for CAR? CAR stands for, C stands for circumstance, A stands for action, and R stands for result. Let me give you an example. I was interviewing a woman a few years ago. I've trained my team. I asked this woman a question. It was a behavioral-based interview questions, and I'm listening, and I said, you know, I'd really like you to describe, I'm not holding anything back. Hey, I'd really like you to describe the circumstances, the action, and the result that you achieved as a result of that. Ask her the question. She gives me the circumstance. She does not give me the action or result. So I rephrased the question to make sure that she heard what the question was, and I said, you know, if you can share, you know, the action and result. She said, I already answered that question. I'll never forget this interview as long as I live. What do you think I did next? That was pretty much the end of the interview. If that was her attitude during trying to get a job, can you imagine how she would show up if she came on board? Can't have that. So I knew that's not the attitude that I wanted to be on the team for that next hire. All right, so here you have, you don't even need this. I'm going to, on the board, we'll make this super simple. So you're going to practice this, but you're going to practice. One of you is going to be the interviewer. One of you is going to be the interviewee. If you need to move around to get a partner, that's fine. I'm going to give you the questions up on the screen. Here's why. I want you to listen for CAR. When they answer your question, I want them to give you the circumstance, action, and result. I bet you're going to learn something from the people that you're working with, even if you work with them all the time. So here are your questions. You're going to use these 5 questions. The last 3 are behavioral based. So the first one is it's not in your packet, it's up on the screen. So I'm going to make it simple. So you know, you could say something like, hey, tell me why you want to work here if you want to, or you could say, tell me how your education experience, you know, really fit the position you're applying for. So we're trying to get it warm and friendly. We're not going to just dive right in. This is not an interrogation. This is an interview for that next candidate. Super great question that never gets asked, probably one of the most important questions before we get into behavioral based. Please ask them, what motivates you? I am telling you, It is going to come back to help you later on. Maybe not right then and there, but if you hire this person, I'm telling you, it is going to be a great question. Depending on their answer, you'll figure out if they're a good fit for the organization or not. And then the next 3. So decide who's going first. I'm going to time you. I'll give you about 10 minutes each. I'll call time at 10 minutes, and then I'll ask you to switch, okay? Decide who's going first, ask those questions, and then we'll go on to the next person. Listening for car. Okay, so what did you learn from this session? This little practice session. I heard some real responses. Thank you for participating fully. I appreciate it. How many of your interviewees actually responded CAR? Circumstance, action, result. Raise your hand if your person you were interviewing did that. Up here did. Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Yeah, so any of the questions, did they respond that way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. He did explain a difficult situation, how he went about it, and I think it was a good result.
Okay, great. So let me just say I chose those. You could choose 10, 15, whatever time you have for, but I was looking for someone about decision making. I was looking for someone about accomplishment or goal setting. I was looking for someone who had good communication skills. I chose those questions on purpose because that's the kind of person I'm looking for to join the team. They're just not just the regular questions you can Google for sure. Now, the reason that's important is to listen that way, and if they don't get it, you can come back and tell them, hey, appreciate that response, but can you also give me the action or result? There are weasel words that people use when they're interviewing. Let me give you an example. If you ask me a question and I say, yeah, you know, we did that. We had an amazing project, and we really did accomplish the result. Well, first of all, the minute I say we, you have no idea what I just did, whether I'm on the project or I'm getting coffee. You have no idea. You say, Kim, that's great. What was your role on the project? You need to come back because now I'm trying to, you know, tell you how great I am, but the truth is I haven't really accomplished anything. A lot of these words, if you do Google it or use AI Chat GPT or whatever you happen to be using today to come up with these, or maybe your agency has given you these questions, it's really important to make sure the questions really fit with what you're looking for, but also teaching them about CAR. Your team needs to learn about CAR so that you get the person that you want. And sometimes, guess what? People have no job experience when they're coming in as an entry-level person. No problem. In life, in high school, in your family, you can change the question, how have you been able to contribute in that way? So they do have something so that you don't make them feel like they don't belong. Now, when we are interviewing, it is very common for all of us to have biases. So the first one is similar to me. You know what? I like to go fishing. Wow, I really like this guy. Oh my gosh, we got to have him on the team. Or status effect. I went to Texas Tech, and that's the only school that I would even considering hiring, or UT or U of H or Baylor or whoever in the state of Texas. Now you have some common ground and you see that, you know what, now you're listening from, I like this person, rather than being as objective as possible and putting that to the side. What are you looking for? And then again, recency bias, what that means is that the person that you most recently interviewed, or the person who is close to your decision making, maybe it's a 2-week window, and now you're going to make your final decisions tomorrow, but this person interviewed today. That's what you remember, and you go with that person rather than thinking about each one of the candidates in the notes, referring back to your notes. And then the last one is contrast. There are certain things, comparing one candidate against the other. I know that sounds normal, but it's going to get you into trouble. If you compare them against the objective criteria you're looking for, you're more likely to get the candidate you're looking for as opposed to what you don't like. I don't like the sound of that person's voice. They sound like, my ex-wife, or whatever that happens to be. I don't like the color of their hair. Whatever that gets in the way of us making the best decision we possibly can. So sometimes, again, common mistakes. This could go either way, not only just for the candidate, but also for us. So we have a negative tone. We're not making it welcoming when they come in. When I interview somebody, I have one goal. I have many, but one goal in particular. I want them to work with us no matter what. Like to think it's the best place to be. Whether we hire them or not, I want to leave them because they're going to go out into your community and talk about it. They're going to go home and say how things went. And so again, thinking about that impact. Again, we're just trying to cram in an interview in our day. We're so busy that it's just another task to do, but that's a human being across the table from you or across the desk from you. Relying on first impressions. The truth of the matter is we're moving so quickly today that most people, when they're interviewing someone, that means all of us in the room, if you had the opportunity to do that, you're making your decision within probably the first 60 to 90 seconds. They walk through that door, you've already assessed them. Your perception is going to define how you see them next. I like them, I don't like them, and you're listening from that. So it's either going to be 58 minutes of I really like this person, and that's all you can hear in your head, or I really don't, how can I end this quickly? So again, thinking about that and being able to be as objective as possible. And then, of course, rushing the interview. You're trying to slam it in between things, maybe just reschedule it for another day or later in the day. And then failure to ask probing questions. They give you an answer. Some people, if you ask them what time it is, they're going to tell you how to build the watch. Some people are just going to tell you what time it is. So again, those people who have maybe less to say, that's where your skill is going to come in to be able to ask those probing questions. A simple one is, tell me more about that. That's a good coaching question anyway, because again, you're allowing them the opportunity to say more about that. Now, I know that you know this, but I'm always surprised when I share this that maybe there's one or two, sometimes 100, that don't know this one thing, and I'm going to help. I'm sure you're taught this, but I want to make sure that you know this. So obviously we want to take notes on a separate piece of paper or an interview guide. Do not take notes on the resume. That last thing on the bottom, that's the thing that gets people in trouble. How many people have ever seen 60 Minutes, the TV show? 60 Minutes? Well, for many years, not anymore, but for many years, every Sunday night in 60 Minutes, there was some company out there where some employee wrote on the resume. And where do you think they landed? Court, absolutely. In court, because that is a legal document that can be subpoenaed. And if they want to come and say, I wasn't hired by this company because it is a problem, use a separate piece of paper. For younger people in their career and they're interviewing, they don't know that. So don't assume they do. It will get you in trouble faster than just about anything. So again, thinking about that. It can be subpoenaed, so just know that. How many people knew that already? Raise your hand. Okay, a few. So that's something to go back and share with your team if they're part of that interview panel. I know it's just natural to write there because it's right there. But again, we don't want to do that. We don't want to cause a problem for ourselves. These are questions you cannot ask in the state of Texas. I know you know this too. But your newer people on your team may not know that. They might be just curious. How many kids do you have? What school do your kids go to? Are you married? Those things we cannot ask about. Do you have a disability? Can't ask about it. Those are against the law in Texas. All right. So I just want to know right here before we go on to the next part, which is really all about pulling it all together, and we're going to get into the guide. What is one thing today, so far, just about the first part of hiring the right person on your team, what's something that you can take away that you learned that you can apply? Something you could apply in your next interview or something you learned. Car. All right. Okay, good. I love car. It's one of my favorite things. But you can remember it too, right? A visual car, CAR, circumstance, action, result. Somebody else. Something you learned that you might be able to apply in the next interview or take back to your facility and share it with your leader or somebody else. Okay, thank you. Using more behavioral-based questions. Again, you can Google it if you don't have that available to you through HR or you just don't have it as part of your processes. You can Google it, AI Chat GPT, figure out the competencies that you're looking for and have them write the behavioral-based questions for you. Very easy thing to do, saves a ton of time. Somebody else. One more thing. Something that you can take back and that you've learned some more this morning so far. Yes, absolutely. Asking about a person's motivation, you can tell a lot about that person. There's a whole lot of reasons why people get into corrections and stay in corrections. That question will be very telling. You can use it later on, just in case they lose their motivation or they start to get overwhelmed or burn out. You can always go back to your notes and remember, this person is really motivated by this and bring it back. So let's have not go anywhere, but you can always leave and get coffee and bathroom and all that. But stand up and just do a stretch break real quick. We'll just do some health and well-being stuff right now if you feel like it. And then we're going to get into some great activities. Okay, welcome back. So as I said, retention is the new recruitment. You will need a guide for the next 4 or 5 activities that we're going to do. So they should be in the back of the room. I have some up here as well. For those of you who downloaded the app in this section, I actually have a 32-page handout. If you want a lot more detail about some of the things that we're going to be talking about, this is only 11 pages, so you'll have a lot of resources when you go back. The other thing I want to say is on employee motivation, on the very last page where I have resources, there is a fantastic TED Talk out there, and it is called Stop Trying to Motivate Your Employees. It is fantastic. So you're going to learn a lot of new things from Carrie in the TED Talk about maybe things you've never really considered, and you're looking at this person. I think that you'll look at your team a little bit differently than you did before you watched the video after. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do over the next 2 hours, and that is to really drill down into employee motivation and try to have a better understanding of what it is. And then we're going to practice having a discussion with our middle performers. And then also, where are those key touch points? It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but you want to stitch in that employee so they feel like they actually belong in your facility. When are those key points? And then how to have an impactful touch-base meeting or one-on-one meeting, whatever you call it in your particular facility. And then I want to change some things up about recreating the conversations or the questions you use with your employees. And then finally, I want us to practice stay interviews. How many of you all conduct stay interviews at your facility? Not exit, stay. Okay, you are in for a treat. Let me tell you why. It is going to re-energize you because COVID took a lot from us. And really it's an opportunity to reignite the dream, not only for your employee, but yourself. And you're going to walk out of there going, that is the best 20 minutes I have ever spent in a really long time. And then we're going to do a gap analysis, and then you're going to decide, based on your facility and the things that you do, where you're doing really, really well, and where there's an opportunity to make some improvements. But we're not going to tackle 30 things. We'll tackle 1 or 2 things, and that can be your action plan when you walk out of here. So now you have a plan going forward over this next year to improve your retention. So Brian Tracy is a motivational speaker, I think you know that, an author, and he says the difference between the top performers and the average or mediocre performer is not a great massive difference. It's just a tiny difference because the top performers do things a tiny bit different. How many people agree with that in your facility? How many people agree with that? Yes? No? When you think about the people that work for you? So I said I would share with you the top 5 things that people want today. I'm talking about millennials and Gen Zs. It will vary a bit individually because all people are different. But in terms of what's important to them is they want to work with purpose. You guys can really fall back on your mission statement or your values at your organization and instill that on a regular basis. You just don't have that conversation once. If I feel like I'm making a difference, I'm coming to serve, that I am part of a team, I am more likely to stay. Do not forget that. That's number 1. Number 2, for millennials and Gen Zs, is, well, I will tell you, in the last 25 to 30 years, between Conference Board and Gallup, the research says the same thing, and has not changed. The boss and the coworkers are the reasons people stay or leave. Mostly the boss. Leaders and coworkers. That research has not changed. I don't care what generation you're in. That boss makes a difference. The people that you work with make the difference. They make you feel like on Sunday night, yes, I want to go to work on Monday, or can I call in sick? Next is growth and development. So your millennials and Gen Zs, they're younger in their career, so think about that. They want somebody to invest in them, show me the way, teach me, allow me to learn. Number 4, sometimes number 3, is coaching and mentoring. I want to say this very strongly so you all hear it. It is not a want, it is a demand. And if they can't get that from you, they're going to go somewhere else. And the last one is appreciation. So again, for some people, the way they were raised and grew up, hey, you got a paycheck, you got a shift, you're getting money, that's all you need. Why should I thank them for coming to work? I'm telling you, if you want to retain your people, it's about appreciation, sincere appreciation. It can be something as simple, I'm so glad that you're here on shift this morning. It's really great to see you. Or saying things like that. You really make a difference on our team. I'm telling you, nobody has left an organization or an agency because, oh my God, they appreciate me so much here, I can't take it. I have to go somewhere else. That just doesn't happen. So just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a little bit of appreciation. Think about it in your own personal life, with your spouse, your significant other. Your kids, when they appreciate something that you did, how does it make you feel? Pretty great. You want more of that. What do I need to do again so I get more of that? That'd be amazing. There are things, though, that are external motivators. So recognition is a piece of that. Salary. Once they have a salary, so some people have the misconception that that's a motivator. It is an external motivator, but it's not what keeps somebody staying. Because they already know what the paycheck is. When you signed on, you already knew what that was going to be. You already knew what the benefits are going to be. But it's the people when I come back every day that make me feel good about what I'm doing or make me feel bad about what I'm doing. All right, so let's talk about the middle performers. What do you think motivates middle performers? We're going to find out. But before we do that, before I ask you about the high, middle, and low performers, what motivates you to come to work? Somebody raise your hand. Please. Being a leader. Okay. A lot of fulfillment in that. Okay. Somebody else. What makes you come to work? Provide for a family. Absolutely. Makes you feel good. Proud of that. Somebody else. What makes you come to work? Gentleman back here. What makes you come to work? Money. What else?
So you got to believe in what you do and like what you do. Not just like it, you got to love what you do, especially in this field, to be able to put up with what you put up with people, not only inmates,
Absolutely. See, he said you have to like, then he changed it to love what you do. You really have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe that what you're doing makes a difference. And if you do that, all the other stuff can get handled. All right. So what do you think is a motivator of a high performer? What do you think? Advancement, yep. Absolutely. I'm hired on, doesn't care what I come in as, but you know what? I know what motivates me. I am going to continue to grow with this company. What do you think motivates a low performer? Pardon me? Okay, I'm not going to repeat whatever I didn't hear. So let me say this. This may go against, I hope well, if we have HR people, you can talk to me after this, but you may not agree with this. But I certainly know, I work also in healthcare, and during COVID, just like everybody else, we were all scrambling for great healthcare people. People were going outside of the city to take care of other people during COVID. There was a lot of competition for nurses and doctors, providers. So you feel compelled to compete against everybody else. And what was everybody else doing? Sign-on bonuses. They don't work. Here's why. You will get a low performer every time. Oh man, if I can get a sign-on bonus, that would be so great. And then once I get hired, I'm not doing any more. I got what I'm doing. Oh, I have to stay here 2 years to keep that up? No problem. I'm just going to coast. I know that's probably something to wrap your mind around. You may not agree with me, but I've seen it time and time again. The company I work for actually did that for our correctional health. Complete disaster. They had a 3-year, and at the end of 3 years, people stayed until that very last day, and then it was a mass exodus. We think we had problems before. We had many more problems before. So again, just thinking about it, again, it's your company, your agency, what suits you, but the evidence shows that this does not work. But we all feel like we need to do something at the same time in order to find these people. So Mark Murphy, who is, he runs a company called Leadership IQ, does a fantastic job, and he says this is the makeup, it may not be true in your organization, this is the makeup of most organizations about the people that work there. So about 10% are high performers, low is 20%, and middle is 70%. You may have maybe 20% who are high, don't know what that number happens to be, but let's just say he's right, give or take 10%. So where do you spend most of your time during the day when you're not dealing with the regular job, but as far as people are concerned, where are you spending most of your time? Your low performers, your high performers, your middle performers? I should hear a round of the same word that says low performers. You're dealing with those performance issues all of the time. That's where you're spending the bulk of your time because they're causing problems and you're having to go solve those problems. So now I want you to do this. Now in your guide, you have the same grid, and I want you to identify, not by name, no names because I don't know where this guide could end up. So put initials, but put people that you work with or they work for you. Who are the high performers? Who are the middle performers? And who are the low performers from your perspective? And if you're not a hiring manager, no problem. You don't have direct reports, no problem. You can see who the high performers are, who the middle performers are. This is an opportunity for everyone to play. So, high, middle, or low. And y'all don't need to discuss it because we want to keep the names confidential. It's your perception. So who are your highs, who are your middles, who are your lows? Bless you. Okay. Hopefully you've identified the highs, the middles, the lows. Maybe not everybody, but a few people. Don't you think that's interesting? That you can do that? That you can see the difference? Interesting. Okay, does this sound like you? You've been given a project. It's 4 o'clock on Friday. You get back to the facility. You can't do it by yourself. Who do you ask? High performer, middle performer, low. High every time, right? Oh my gosh, it's due on Monday. You can't do it by yourself. Who are you going to tag? You're going to absolutely ask the high performer every time. Yes? Okay. It's next Friday. Happening again. Got another report. Got to get it out. Can't do it by yourself. Who do you go back to? Thank you. Absolutely. Maybe you've never thought about it this way. You go back to the high performer. What's happening? Burning them out, right? Oh my gosh. Who has the worst job in your department? The high performer. You probably never thought about it quite like that. So it might have to do with the costs and the benefits to being a high performer, the way people look at it in your particular agency. So maybe sending, and I know we're a 24/7 facility, so, but you get the idea. Maybe it's not about sending those 2 a.m. emails, meaning if it's a regular shift for someone, or working another weekend after weekend. Maybe high performance is the way we define it. Maybe it doesn't have to be the way we've always done it. So you have to know, just like our right candidate, who are we looking for? What are those competencies? Now we have to think about, what is it that I really want in a high performer? And it's not the next step on advancing your career. What are those competencies and skills am I looking for to be able to become a high performer? All right, this is what Mark also says. Let's pretend he's right, that 70% of the people that work with us are middle performers. So some percentage lack the confidence, some percentage. Some are maxed out. 10% of that 70% are maxed out. They can't do anymore. They are working at maximum capacity for that, and we need them, by the way. Nothing wrong with that at all. So let's take 10% out of 70%. We now have 60% potentials. Some of that 60% flat don't know how. They don't know how to do the job. They lack the confidence. Or they think being a high performer from this movie that I'm watching every single Friday doesn't look too good to me. Why would I sign up to work all weekend long to get this report out? Or why would I be responding to emails 24/7? Because you think that's a good thing. But I want to go back to the one in red, lacking confidence. I wonder, you don't have to say anything or respond to me, I wonder if at any point in your career, particularly younger part of your career, where somebody tapped you on the shoulder and says, have you ever thought about going for that promotion? And maybe your first response was, no, I don't think so. But they see something in you, they saw something in you that you didn't even see in yourself. That's what meaning that lacking confidence means. So now we have 60% of the people that work with us a potential pool to work with. And that's where we want to go. We want to reverse, we want to change our time. Instead of spending so much time with our low performers, we want to start to focus on our middle performers. How we do that is we really do want to have a coaching conversation and talk about potential. They may not see that potential that you're seeing in them. That happens quite often. And then we want to do some kind of assessment with them and then figure out the skills and attitude that we need to go forward so they can become that high performer. So it's a 5-step process. And the first thing that we're going to do is we want to set the stage for having this conversation. We want to assess their confidence. They may not feel like it. Maybe they don't see it. They have a blind spot when it comes to themselves. And then, or they may be scared. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And then, of course, we want to be able to talk about the expectations of that particular role and then the perceived costs and benefits. I think that would be an amazing conversation for you guys to even have with employees to say, ask them, what do you think it takes to be a high performer? And they tell you whatever they tell you. And then you can say, well, what do you think are the costs and the benefits? You're going to learn a lot about things that you thought you knew that you didn't know. All right, so in your guide, it's a 5-step process. And what we're going to do right here is we are going to use the 5 steps. So on page 4, it starts on page 5, but on page 4 is where we're going to go. So you're going to get a partner. And I would love for you to practice this, because if you practice it here, even though it's weird, when you get back to your facility, it's going to go so much better. So you don't want to practice on one of your people. You can practice here. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have this conversation for growth. That's the setup. And you can say, you know, I just want to tell you your performance has been really solid. And I believe you have untapped potential. And want to find ways to tap into that potential. Is that a conversation that you're okay having? You always want to ask permission to have a conversation about anything. And if they say yes, great, you go ahead. If they say no, do you mind if I ask why? Now, it may not be a good time. You have no idea what's on their plate. They got so many other things like, this is not a good time. Great, can we talk about it next week? No problem. Then schedule it when it's convenient. The next part 2 is, do you see the same potential in yourself that I see in you? That'll be an interesting response. The next is, can you tell me about what you consider to be the criteria for being a high performer? Again, they've been watching the movie for quite some time now. They may not like the movie. They may think, I don't want to be a part of that. And then can you tell me about a time? Now this is when it's getting real, so please don't get triggered by their responses. That would not go well. Can you tell me about a time in the last 6 to 12 months when you particularly motivated, frustrated, emotionally burnt out? And that's real, right? On any given day you can feel that way. You feel that way sometimes. It's okay for them to feel that way. What if they could say it? And then when you started the job, what did you want? What's your favorite part of the job? What do you look forward to? This is a really cool conversation to have, because it will help them think about, these really are the things I enjoy. So you're stitching them in. And then what really drives you? So again, that's the conversation that you're going to have. We have other questions underneath that, but at least those 5 questions is where you're going to start. So again, do you see potential in yourself? Your performance has been solid. Everybody likes to hear that if that's true. Again, we're going to go on to the other parts, which is all in your guide. I'm going to keep these up because these are additional questions that you can ask. But again, we're going to practice the conversation. So you have the questions right there, and you have some additional questions also in the guide. Pick a partner, and I want you to have the conversation. And it'll be weird if it's your boss, but that's okay. And then just simply say, if you're asking if they're willing to have a conversation, and then go through those 5 questions. You could ask a few more questions, and then I'm going to tell you when to switch. So everybody has an opportunity to be able to do that. I am sure you're going to learn something new from somebody at the table. Go. Okay. Now at your table, now that you've learned something for 1 or 2 persons at the table, I want you all to discuss in your own words your definition of high performance at your particular facility or agency. What is high performance? What does it mean to you? So just at your table, have a discussion and see if that fits with what people said when you were doing the conversation for growth. So what's the definition of high performance? What do you think it takes to be a high performer? I heard more than just the basics. So here's why this is really important. Whether your organization does annual evaluations or not, you in your head have an idea of what it takes to exceed expectations, meet expectations, or not meet. Yes? Well, it's in your head. But if you haven't written it down someplace for yourself, how do you expect an employee? If I work for you, how can I ever get there if I don't know what it is? Because I've made up something else based on the movie I've been watching that may or may not be accurate. So until it's clear to you, it can't be clear to the team members. And that's really important. I might be killing it. I'm thinking I'm killing it as far as doing a great job for my leader, but it's not on the top 10 things he wants me to do. But I didn't know that. So until we have those kind of conversations, there's no way we're going to be aligned on where we need to go. All right, so there are lots of things that motivate employees. These are the top 6 categories. So security could be, I can take care of my family. I have a paycheck. I have a roof over my head. I can pay my car payment. Affiliation is being able to be with people. That really is important to me. It motivates me. To be a better person, to live with purpose, to work with purpose, to serve others. Definitely rewards. That can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't always have to be monetary. Achievement. I want to see how far I can take my career. I want to see if I can be the best person they've ever hired. Power, whole different deal. And adventure. So in the guide, in the app, it gives you a lot more details. I'm not going to go into all of that, but if you want to have questions to find out what motivates someone, I provided those questions to try to figure out what is the true motivator for this person. Is it power? Is it achievement? Is it adventure? So now that we've done this part, what do you think your group would look like if you could double the number of high performers without having to hire another person? What do you think it'd be like? It would be awesome, right? It would be amazing. So again, just a little bit of thinking, and honestly, that's what we need to focus our attention today because of what I've already told you about staffing shortages. So I had a really great question earlier in the back, and I really like rewards. Super fun for me. But I think participation also gets something, so here you go. All right. And I know y'all are very competitive, so. Okay, next is, where are these touch points that we can make a difference with our employees? So you've hired them, great. Now, in the old days, and I'm thinking this is the old days, not now, but in the old days, maybe you got hired and they said, here are the keys, that's where you're going, that's it. And that was your introduction to your job. I believe we've come a long way with regards to helping people learn what the role is and what the expectations are. But we can't just leave them alone. And when we lose most of our people, it's within the first 30 days to 2 years. If you can keep them 2 years, they're probably going to stay, at least 7. They may not stay for a career, depending on where they come in, but that's important. So how many of you all do 30-day check-ins? It's been 30 days since you hired the person. I knew you did. What's the benefit? You don't have to come over here. What's the benefit to doing a 30-day check-in?
If you don't meet with them or see them on a daily basis, it's a really good touch base to catch up on things. Go over TNA if there's anything that you can do for them.
Absolutely. So that 30-day check-in is really critical. Put it on your calendar. It doesn't have to take long. It can take a few minutes. You can take notes. You will get better. You can ask, again, you can have a set of questions, as few or as many as you want. You can go search that as well. What are the questions I should ask at 30 days? So one of the questions you can say is, when I first hired you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited were you? And where are you now? What is something that you really enjoy about this job? What is something that frustrates you? Or what is something you need to learn that you don't feel confident about? How can I support you? Which is exactly what he said. So that's a good check-in time. When I first, whoever said, you hired somebody and they just didn't show up the same way that you expected them to. So that's a big deal for me. So when I first got hired, I thought I interviewed well. I probably didn't interview the way most people do. I was a little, I felt good. They made me feel good about being there. I wasn't even looking for a job, to tell you the truth, with them, but they made it so fun. I'm like, I want to be around these people. They're pretty amazing. But 30 days in, I didn't take that for granted. So when my boss did a 30-day, he said, do you have any questions for me? Which is always good. And I said, yeah, I have one. I said, when you interviewed me and you thought you hired X, did you get X or did you get Y? And he said, I got X. I said, that's all I need to know. Because in that moment, I knew I was doing what he wanted. And what I said during the interview, I showed up that way. And that was important to me. Most people probably aren't going to ask that question, but it's really important that you all are aligned. And you may have to go back to some expectations. What about, how many of you all do 60 days? Check-ins. Next good idea. Guess what? 30 days, I was still so excited. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. 60 days? What's your energy level? Well, I know last month you said you were a 10. Well, I'm a 5. Well, what happened? Tell me what happened. Now, this is when you're going to find out some things you may not want to hear. The people I work with on the pod, they are so ugly to me. In fact, I feel like I'm bullied, and I'm pretty much thinking I'm going to leave. This isn't for me. That happens. That's why you can't take these things for granted and assume everything's okay. And they need that connection. The same thing for 90 days. Some organizations still have 90 days as probationary period. It's all different. But again, that 90-day, don't assume. It's a good check-in because, again, you did an interview. You think everything's cool. Unless you're checking in before that final, hey, they're really not in probationary period anymore. We're going to commit, and they're going to commit. Let's make sure that we made the right decision. Now we have the middle performer. That's a conversation that you don't have with everybody. You have it maybe once a year, but you see potential in someone. Now that 4 o'clock thing is real, right? On Fridays, you do get asked to do things that are going to keep you, and you're going to have to spend doing that on the weekend. You don't wait until that moment that then decide, I am now going to delegate something to one of my middle performers. That is going to be a disaster waiting to happen. But what you can do is figure out what can I begin to delegate so they can grow and learn, not to just get it off your desk, but to find out, hey, I have someone that really likes spreadsheets. I have someone who really likes being with people. I have someone who really likes processes and procedures. I have somebody who really is doing this, but they have said they want to learn more about the operation. That's when you start to work on it, not till you're at a critical period where, you have to deliver the report. So kind of think about it in little ways about that person, not to just get it off your desk. The other thing about delegation is that you tell them what you tell them, you show them what you want them to do, you don't micromanage it, but say, I like to have this back by, let's just say it's next week. Next Wednesday at noon, I'm going to do a check-in on Monday. How's it going? Do you need anything? That's it. Are we still going to make Wednesday at noon? Yeah, that's it. Then let them go do it. They may do it differently than you, but as long as it gets done. Now, of course, you're going to give them some feedback. That's the number 6 thing for retention today, is that employees really do want feedback. They want to know how they're doing, and I cannot overemphasize that. The next thing is, these are touch points throughout the year. The next one is a learning review. You've probably never even thought about it. You can use a learning review in a couple of different ways. You can use it in your touch base. You could use it at actually. You could use it this way. I'm going to teach you something real quick and fast, but you could do it formally or informally. There are 4 questions in a learning review, which we're going to practice in a minute. But the interesting thing about learning reviews is little bitty things make a big difference. It's not the big stuff. So change of shift, briefings, things like that. If you just stopped and said, what are you looking forward to on the shift today? Or what was your high point from this week? At the end of 5 days, first of all, it's like a bookend. If you start out by saying, what are you looking forward to? You're starting the week or the day in a positive frame of mind. If we come back 5 days later, whatever that looks like, and say, what was the high point? Tell me something I don't know. They're going to leave and take their 2 days or however many days they have off and be in a good frame of mind to want to come back to work. But when we don't acknowledge some of those things, we don't know. Then we're going to do stay interviews, which is, if you're not doing it, please don't wait till an exit interview. It's way too late. You can do something in a stay interview. An exit, they're out the door. It's too late. But a stay interview is going to be a very powerful, and it's a very proactive way. Only about 25% of organizations in the United States today use stay interviews, but they are catching on fast. All right. So tell me, for my sake, when you do a touch-base meeting or a coaching meeting or a one-on-one meeting, how does it go? Do you have an agenda? What are your questions? Do you have an intention? Do you schedule them? No. Just grab them in the hallway, in the corridor. Hey, how's it going? Hey, if you say good morning and that's a good thing, that, you know, even there are critical places, so I don't want you to think walking out of here, oh my God, I don't have time for all this. Something as simple as change a shift when they're coming into the facility, standing there and saying good morning, how are you doing, goes a long way. That takes what? Well, it depends on how long your check-in process is, but maybe 15 minutes, maybe less. And the same thing going home. Hey, have a great weekend. I just really enjoyed seeing you today. Something like that is going to make a big difference. They'll be shocked. If you haven't been doing it, they will be shocked. All right, so now we're going to do the monthly learning review. And I know for sure, this is super easy. It's only 4 questions. And it's on page 5. So I want you to pick a partner and ask them, and I want you to say for real what it is. So the questions are, what would you like to get better at this month? We haven't learned it all. There's something else to learn. What is something you're better at now than you were at last month? The reason that's important is every day seems like the next day, and all of a sudden you don't realize, oh my gosh, I have learned so much in the last 30 days. I can't even believe it. So you're really acknowledging the effort that they put into something, and they can tell you. The next question is, what was your professional high point this month and your professional low point? It's going to help you help them. All right, so get a partner, ask the 4 questions. I'll tell you switch after 4 minutes. Go. Okay. So that first question on the learning review is really important because they're telling you what they want to learn. When I told you that number 3 on terms of retention factors today is about growth and development, you don't have to guess. They're telling you what they're interested in learning more about. Another one is thinking about where the question about what they're better at now than they were 30 days ago is an important question. I used to work at the university, and I would walk down the hallways at the end of the semester. And I walked by this particular classroom, and the teacher is extraordinary. Extraordinary. And the students were coming out, and I would say, hey, what did you learn this semester? What do you think they said? Nothing. That's what they always say. Like, if you ask your kids, what'd you learn? Nothing. So the problem is we don't have a line to be able to say, you know what, when I started this semester, when I started this month at work, I knew this, but now I know this. When you can say that out loud, they see the value of working where you are. That is very important because for most people, one day turns into the next, turns into the next, turns into the next. And I can't tell you when I learned it unless I have something to draw it out. These questions are really important. Another thing I like to do, it's super simple. But usually around 90 days, it's not specifically on 90 days, it depends on, and sometimes I'm hiring a bunch of people at the same time, sometimes a few people. Doesn't matter. On my calendar from that higher date, I put 90 days on my calendar, and what I then do is I invite them to the break room, and I call it food for thought. So I might have cookies, and we're getting to summertime in Texas, so might have ice cream, whatever. But their ticket in is they have to answer 3 questions. What do you like about working here? What surprised you? And what can be improved? I took notes like a crazy person for 2 years. And some of the most important things that they taught me were things I stopped seeing. Here's what I mean. Even though you all are trained every day to look, at some point, when you think about when you leave your house and you're driving to work, has there ever been a day when you think, how did I get here? I don't even remember driving, right? We become unconscious to that. It's the same thing in your facility. I'm telling you, when you went to a new facility, you saw it all. You looked up, you looked down, ceilings, floors, everything. You were taking it all in. But at some point, we're not paying that much attention anymore. Here's how I know. Pretend that at home, whether it's you or your wife or somebody, has decided that the couch needs to be moved in the living room, needs to be changed. So we're going to move it this way, we're going to move the chairs here, and at first it's like weird and like, I don't think this is good. By the 3rd day, it's just the way it's always been. You've stopped even noticing that anything got changed. It is the same thing in your facility. So literally kind of having that time when you need their eyes. Even though they may not know anything about the job that they just got, they have a set of eyes. And they're seeing things you would never see. And they're working at a level you would never know. The people who do the job, those are the people we need to be asking what's going on. I took notes for 2 years. I literally, at the end of 2 years, they couldn't come up with anything to be improved. Because those guys had given me so much feedback and we acted on it. And it was simple, simple stuff that I would have never thought about because I wasn't there. So again, those are some fun little things to do. Don't take a lot of time. Totally unexpected by most employees, but they appreciate being asked. And again, depending on if they've worked other places, I'm telling you, they are going to have some great ideas that you've never even considered. Most of you have changed jobs, maybe one agency or one facility to another. You find out when you go to that other place, they're doing some things that you never have seen before, and you like it. But then there were some things you were doing at your facility that you like, and now you're wondering why they're not. So it's a really great conversation to have because it's going to make everybody so much better. So now what I want to be able to do is go to this. Do you know why your employees stay? Now, before you give me a generic answer and say yes, let me ask it more specifically. Do you know why each and every one of your employees stay? No is the answer, right? We assume a lot of things, and we go in like everybody's the same, and it's not. We have no idea. We had 6 different answers this morning when I asked you what motivated you. It's the same thing. You don't know unless you ask. And the way you're going to ask is with a stay interview. Evans and Jordan wrote a book called Love 'Em or Leave 'Em. And it's all about stay interviews. And it's a really great book. And one of the things they say in that book is, if you don't have 30 minutes, they say 30, you could probably do it in 20. If you don't have 30 minutes to stop and have a stay interview with an employee, you don't have the time to replace them. Because it takes a whole lot more than 30 minutes to be able to replace that person when you lose them. So here's how it is. There is a structure to a stay interview. And the first part of that is we're going to send an email. We're not going to get them all crazy and go, hey, I want to see you, because now they're going, oh my God, am I in trouble? My boss never wants to see me. So we're going to be very transparent. We're going to send them an email and say, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you to talk about reasons you like staying here, or something like that. So there is a sample email in there that we're sending out in advance so that they know. You schedule it over the next 2 weeks. It's 20 minutes. Schedule on your calendar 30. You probably only need 20, but you have some people in your group who like to talk, and you have other people who are one-word answer people. You're going to schedule it. You're going to have your questions prepared in advance. You're going to conduct that meeting. You're going to take notes. And you're going to create a plan for that person going forward. And you're going to hold on to those notes because it's going to help you, particularly if they're having one of those days where they're just not feeling it. Okay, here's a sample email. It goes something like that. You would have to put it in your own words. It sounds just like you, but basically you're letting them know in advance that I want to meet with you to learn about your work experience, fill in the name of your agency, and what motivates you. And the purpose of our meeting is so I can understand about your work and what's important to you and how I can help you as a manager. How can you continue to support them? Let's schedule that within the next 2 weeks. All right, here are some sample questions. I love this question. So what do you think about on your way into work? I love question number 2 also because many of you all did not hire the people in your facility. They were already there. You didn't probably pull their resume and find out all the things that they've done in their life. Do you think we're currently, in the current position that you are in, are we fully utilizing your skills and talents? You might have something, I have no idea. And I've been looking for this, but you were right there and I didn't even know it. What's your dream job? How can we support your progress? Are you being treated respectfully by coworkers? And certainly that's an issue about some coworkers bullying people, things like that. Here's some more sample questions. Do you respect the amount and kind of leadership and guidance you receive from senior management? What kinds of flexibility would be helpful in balancing your work and home life? So depending on that schedule, it might be choosing their schedule for 30 days in advance to deal with kids and working the 12 hours and that kind of thing. Have you ever considered leaving? Now, I will tell you this, I always like to start with at least three positive questions before I go to some of the more challenging questions. I want to set a positive foundation first, and then I do want to know if they've ever thought about it. Now, if you're going to ask that question, you need to be really secure in your emotional intelligence and not get triggered. What do you mean you were leaving? What? And that's not the purpose. Also, the purpose of a stay interview is not to talk about performance. That's going to be the hardest part of you conducting the stay interview. It is all about them. We're using the 80-20 rule. They're talking 80% of the time. You're asking questions 20% of the time. You are just going to get the communication. Let me say it differently. How many of you, I'll raise your hand, how many of you have ever had somebody in your life really listen to you? Really listen and get what you had to say. It could be one conversation. Raise your hand if you ever had somebody who really listened to you. How'd it make you feel? Good, right? Great. When somebody's not on their phone and trying to do computer email and do this, yeah, tell me why you really like working here. Like, why did you bother? Then don't do it. If that's how your life goes, don't do it. Or if it's one of those days where you scheduled it and it is crazy world, reschedule it. Don't just try to cram it into the day because you said you were going to do it. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for them. Okay, so it's a little tricky. Sounds easy doing a stay interview, but we have to listen. We have to take notes at the same time. And as we're listening, particularly if you have people who are one-word answer people, you've got to ask those probing questions. So obviously, hard thing for us to do today. And for you guys, it probably is put it in your pocket, the phone away and put it on vibrate, because I know there's things you have to respond to. I get that. On the other hand, we want to have open body language, eye contact, smiling, saying, so glad we're able to meet and spend a few minutes together. Looking forward to this. Don't interrupt them and don't answer them. That's another hard part. So here's the purpose of an interview is just to find out what they're thinking. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, they say, you know what I want? One of the questions you've asked. I want to go to a conference and there's money attached to it. Anything that has a resource attached to it, right? You're not going to answer that question. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to what they have to say. We're going to rephrase. So what I heard you say is that you really are interested in attending a conference. Did I hear that correctly? Yes, that's all I'm committing to. I'm not committing to anything because in that moment, I don't know if I have the money to commit to it. I don't want to answer in the moment. I'm just looking for information. Now, I will probably come back in 30 days. No, I will come back in 30 days and say, hey, I checked into it and we either have the money or we don't. Right now, it's not a good time. Our new fiscal year starts this. I'm going to write this down. This is something important to you. And as the funds are available, we can talk about it again. So again, don't feel the pressure to do something in the moment. You're going to paraphrase what they've said so that they know that you've actually heard them, that they weren't just talking. Now, you have some people on your team who can be negative. Yes? So one of the things is that, I know, right? And so one of the things is you have to not react to that and just say, I really appreciate that perspective. And thanks for telling me. That's it. We're not getting into debate. Super hard part of the stay interview because our natural tendency is we want to get in there and engage, but we have to be thinking at the same time and responding appropriately. If for some reason it doesn't go well, you can always, I'll say, reach out to me or reach out to an HR person or a colleague and said, you know what, I don't really like the way that I conducted that stay interview. Can you talk to me about it so I can go back and kind of clean that up? All right, let them know you're taking notes. So ideally, this would be face-to-face. It doesn't always have to be face-to-face, but ideally in your facility, it makes more sense. It's easier for you to do it that way. You just want to capture some key notes, and you want to find out some reasons. You will find some consistency on reasons people stay and the reasons that people are getting frustrated. So again, tell me more. Can you give me an example? Those are good probing questions to get something out. So I had a guy who said, I was listening to the conversation, she was conducting a stay interview, and she said, what do you like about working here? He goes, the schedule. And she really didn't know what to do with that. And so I said, a follow-up question could be, so what do you like about the schedule? How does that help you? And then he started talking about his family. It works for him and his wife and his kids and everything else. And so then, but if she had just left it at that and gone on to the next question, she would have never really learned the true reason why that schedule worked for him. The other part is this is a special conversation. It is a positive conversation to re-engage the things that they love working here. Do not bring in performance. It's a natural thing to say, well, I noticed last week you didn't do da-da-da, or you were late this morning on, no, not this conversation. Save it for another conversation, but just not a stay interview conversation. All right, so now we're going to get to practice this. And this is really, I'm hoping many of the tables have 3 people, which is lovely. And if we don't have 3, if we could get 3 or 6 would be fantastic. In an ideal world, for this practice, I'd like a person who's going to be asking the questions, the employee who's answering the questions, and an observer. The observer is going to give feedback to the person conducting the stay interview because sometimes we can't hear or know what we're doing, and that observer can see and hear it better. So if I can get a couple of you guys to move over, if you 2 can move over there, this gentleman can come with these ladies maybe over here. We could have 3 people. If we can get 3 or 6 people at a table, that would be ideal. And you 2 guys, if you guys could move over there, that would make 6. Okay. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take, in your guide, you have the opening. You're starting out for real, telling them the purpose of this conversation. I want you to look over. I think I left them in there. I put in some questions. You can improvise if you'd like to. You can go on Google, AI Chat, GPT if you find other stay interview questions there. But choose 3 or 4 questions that you really want to know. You're going to find out something, even with a colleague, that you didn't know about them or complete strangers. If you're complete strangers, introduce yourself, tell them where you work. That would be fantastic. And then close it out. So you'll see at the very end, there is a closing statement. The closing statement says, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me today, and I'm I am committed to making this a great place to work. So if you guys will make sure you got 3 people or 6 people, if you can move over here with these guys, that would be great, so that we can get an observer, a facilitator, and the employee. Decide who's going to go first, do the opening, choose 3 questions, close it out. And I'll give each one of you 10 minutes. I want you to be thinking, and I really want you to do this. I want you to take notes, listen, ask probing questions. So it's going to be very challenging to do this. Go. Okay. What did you find hard about doing the stay interview? What did you find hard about doing the stay interview? Yes, not replying why this, why that. That is the hardest thing. You're so used to solving these problems in the moment, right? So you have to zip it and be quiet and listen. What else? What was hard about it? Yes, thank you for that. Trying to keep the conversation going, right? Because you don't want any lulls there. You want to be thinking. You've got to be thinking. You've got to be listening. You've got to be taking notes, still paying attention to them. What did you find invigorating about doing the stay interview and learning something about someone at the table? Maybe that's a strong word for you all. I don't know. It is Friday morning after casino night. Oh my gosh. Okay. So what did you enjoy about it? What did you learn about doing the stay interview? Listening. Did you learn something new from somebody at the table that you didn't know? Maybe what they're thinking about? It's really important to think about yourself in this moment, which is on Sunday nights or whenever your shift is, and then when that next shift is, how do you feel? Are you excited about going to work, about being the change agent, about making a difference, about seeing what's possible and lives changed, about making a difference with your colleagues? The reason I like this so much is this is probably one of the best tools you have after COVID, because we lost a lot during COVID. It was a super hard time, and some people, well, a lot of people really stopped and thought about, what am I doing? What is my purpose? What do I want to continue to do? But if you don't do a reset with your people, you might find that they're more frustrated or overwhelmed or burnt out than you ever thought. This is a great way to reset that and not assume everything's okay. All right. So are you communicating? Do you think you're communicating positive expectations to your employees? Yes, you do, don't you? Yes, I'm an awesome leader. Well, when the leaders, according to Mark Murphy, and they interviewed quite a few people, and what the research actually says is 79% of leaders believe that they are communicating positive expectations, right? I would bet that you all, this crowd is probably pretty similar to what the research says. But then they went and interviewed the employees. And the employees said 18% of them believe their leader is communicating positive expectations. What's the gap? Don't tell me percentage-wise. You know what it is. There's a gap between what we believe and what our employees believe. And for all of us, we have blind spots. So I'm going to segue. I don't have a slide for this, but I think it's really important. Whether it's you or whether it's your employee that are looking to advance in the career or go for that next promotion or to think about the possibility, some of your employees will do that, and they won't get it. In my experience over 30 plus years is when you go and apply for a job that you want and you don't get it, what happens? Yeah, what's going on? What's that self-talk? That's not good. It's very negative, right? These people, they don't get me. They don't understand the value I have. This place is too political. I can't get ahead. You have to know somebody. It's all about favoritism. All sound familiar? Like we say stuff to blame But the reason we do that is we have blind spots. Every single one of us has blind spots. And the only way to be able to help uncover a blind spot, those of you all who are driving know that you have a blind spot in your vehicle, yes? But you know it. But sometimes we forget and we kind of veer into that next lane, and the consequences can be deadly. But nobody ever talks about that in careers. But the truth is our blind spots are the things that are going to keep us from moving forward. This is where you guys come in. You can help somebody uncover their blind spots by asking questions. One of the first questions that I always believe in, and I have lots of, I live by the ABCs, but my first A is for attitude. So if I show up and I have a positive attitude, that's pretty much 80% of it. Then my behavior needs to follow what that attitude is, and then I need to work on my communication skills. But what happens a lot of times, and this is really a disservice to employees, if it's me and I apply for a promotion at your facility, and I've been working there for a while, and I think I'm pretty good, you may have a different opinion, and I don't know why I didn't get it, most people don't take the time to give me feedback, and that's when I need feedback the most. Because what's going to happen is that negative self-talk about these people in this facility and they don't get who I am, my behavior will follow and it will become self-fulfilling, and soon I'll probably get terminated because I am not the person who showed up to interview. The other reason that's important is that if you give me feedback, and it's not a debate, if I come to you and say, hey, appreciate you giving me the time and interviewing me, but can you give me some feedback on what I can work on so I can get better? Because I really want to stay and I want to get promoted over time. I can listen to that all day. She could listen to that all day, and now we can have a real dialogue. I'm not arguing with her, why didn't I get that job? You all picked the wrong person, da-da-da-da-da. Had a woman at the university, we had a director's position open. She was the assistant director. Makes normal sense, right? She would probably get the job. She'd been there a couple of years. She comes in. This interview was unbelievable. She had a PowerPoint presentation. She had copies of the resume. She was dressed professionally. She had all the right answers to the question. I watched her body language as she walked out. She knew she had that job. I was not the deciding factor. It was a panel. But I felt like it was my job to give her some feedback. So I made an appointment after the decision was made. We did not go with her. We went with an external candidate. And I sat down and I said, Katie, I'd like to give you some feedback about the interview. I said, you did nothing wrong. Everything you did that day was right. But here's the deal. When you're an internal member going for a promotion, in my world, you have to be twice as good as anybody on the outside. Here's why. We get to see you every day, and for the last 2 years, we've been watching. And who you showed up on that day to interview was pretty extraordinary, but that's not what we've been seeing. Now, we're saying no today, but I'm not saying no never. I know I am very direct, but there's no point in sugarcoating it because I didn't want her career to get stopped. I was in it for her. And I said, we're saying no today, but not no never. And if you're willing to learn from this new person who has a lot of experience and really can teach you, you can go anywhere you want. So it's another thing. Another thing is about being open to feedback. We had another young lady that was put in a position. She was not ready. I'm just going to tell you straight out, she wasn't ready. Everybody knew she wasn't ready, but they were willing, they said, to help. But when you say you're willing to help and whether you help are whole two different things. So here we get to the end of the year. She's over a team of people, and her evaluation was poor. She had never gotten a poor evaluation. She was gutted. But she did do something really smart. And she said, I'm going to go get feedback from people who believed that I could do this job. And she got a ton of feedback, and she really put it into practice. She took it to heart, and she started to work on it. She was a great taskmaster. She was terrible with people. So her people were completely upset. Well, you can't do anything without people. I don't care what you want to accomplish. So she worked on it over the next year, and she got a stellar evaluation. But if she hadn't taken the feedback, it would not have gone well. We would not have continued to have employed her. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about. And the last thing I want to say is, for some people, maybe in your family, so maybe you could take this to heart. So obviously Texas is known for oil and gas. A lot of people work in oil and gas. Things happen in oil and gas all the time. Layoffs, mergers, lots of, things happen. Had a guy who was married to one of my employees who had lost his job. I came around the corner one day and she was in the hallway and she's a super positive person. She was off. And I said, everything okay? And she said, not really. And I said, so let's step in here in a quiet spot. I said, tell me what's going on. She said, my husband lost his job. He's the breadwinner. We've gone through our 401k. We've gone through our savings. We've gone through everything. I don't know what to do. And she said, he sent out his resume like 100 times. He's gone on a couple of interviews. He just can't seem to close the deal. I said, I don't know if I can help, but I felt so badly for her. I said, see if he wants to talk to me and let's see. Let me figure it out. If I can, I'm going to tell you. So he comes to my office, and I said, what's his dream job? Let me do some research because I don't even know. I want to be intelligent about this interview. He wanted to be a civil engineer for the city of Houston. That was his dream job. Okay, great. So he comes in, he's dressed in a suit, he has a briefcase, he has his resumes and everything else. Lovely handshake, eye contact, going really well. I ask him the questions, we go through the interview. And I said at the end of the interview, can we do it again? He goes, yes. So I ask him the same questions. I'd ask a question, he'd give the response, and I would say, what you might want to say is, maybe just tweak it a little bit. So we get to the end of the second interview, and I said, can we do it again? He goes, yes. So we do it again, and at that point, he was catching on to kind of what I was looking for. At the end of that, I said, may I give you some feedback? I did not assume I could give him feedback. I always like to ask, may I give you some feedback? He said, yes. I said, I want to tell you what. You walked in here, you are amazing. You're dressed well, and you had resume and everything, a great handshake, great eye contact. And, I really believe you're going to get the job. You could do the job. I'm just not going to hire you, and here's why. I'm not going to hire you because what I didn't tell you was that I should have implied it, but what I didn't say to you, he had been terminated by the oil and gas company because they didn't have the business that was there. So all this time, so I said, you did everything right except that you were so loud and clear about how angry you are at your former employer, I couldn't hear anything else. So if you know anything about body language, 93% of communication is through our body language and our tone, only 7%. So he's saying all the right things, but what's coming through is loud and clear, I am mad. So I said, if you can work through that, by your next interview, I think you have a real opportunity here. Coincidentally, that next Wednesday, he had an interview with the city of Houston for his dream job, and he must have done a heck of a lot of work over the weekend because he got the job. So I think it's really important. I think sometimes in Texas, even if you're a guy, we try to be nice. But being nice is not going to help somebody in their career. We have to give feedback so it can help them uncover those blind spots as we go forward. So employees are 500% more excited to work on a goal if they think you're excited. If you guys are in it together, like this is something at our facility, we would want to be the best. Or when our auditors come in, we want to get commendations, not recommendations. Whatever that happens to be, and everybody's on board, a part of the team, they're going to get excited, and they actually think if you think they can achieve the goal, they'll start to think they can achieve the goal. All right, now it's a fun time. I love gap analysis. To me, it's a great way to be able to get better over time. So I've hit some high points, I hope, today. I hope that you've learned some things, but I want you to take the gap analysis and just make a check mark about, hey, I'm doing this, or you can score yourself 5, 3, or 1. 1, not doing it. 3, we're doing it fine. Or 5, it's exceptional, probably exemplar. And I want you to just go through the gap analysis. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to do that. And then I want us to think about what is something you can do when you go back to your facility to work on improving employee engagement. So I'll give you 10 minutes to fill out the gap analysis. And the gap analysis is on page 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so as you finish, and you may not have finished, the gap analysis, it's always nice to know where you're starting from. So what is your retention rate? If you do employee engagement surveys, what's your employee engagement number? So that you can kind of say, okay, these are the 3 things that I'm going to do over the next year to make a difference, and see if we can't drive that up. I teach a class, I don't teach a class, sorry, it's a hybrid class, but I go in online to discussions with about 26 different facilities. And the reason I'm in the discussions is I want to know what the officers say. I'm not so much interested in what executive leadership says, I want to know what the officers are saying. And the officers have simple things to say. If somebody had just given me a buddy, I would have done so much better. If somebody had just told me where the classes are that I can take things so I can learn more. If I had somebody could just say, I don't feel comfortable in de-escalating a situation, but I can't go to my leader and say that. There are simple things that can make a big difference. So you don't have to change the world, but if you start to implement small things, it's going to make a big difference. So you can develop an action plan going forward. Some of the things that we talked about today, or I talked about today, were really those key touch points in the course of a year. Don't take a lot of time, have a huge impact. If you want to change your culture or create a better culture of belonging, this is the way to do it. Practicing those meaningful conversations, and hopefully you have some idea when you walk out of here about how you actually might want to improve employee engagement. I want to hear from a couple of you all before we close out. I have about 3 more slides. Anything you're taking away from this part, not the recruiting part, but the retention part, like, interesting, never thought about that, maybe I'll try it. Employee engagement, motivation, stay interviews, learning reviews, change of shift, 30, 60 day, 90 day, anything. Yes, ma'am. Yes, positive engagement, simple things, even standing, and I said when they're checking in at change of shift, good morning, how are you? Other things, you can do something as simple in the change of shift meetings. Take it away from corrections for a minute and talk about, does anybody, you could say, who has a pet, who has a dog or a cat or something else? And if I know something about your family, then we feel connected. And if you're a dog lover and I'm a dog lover, we're going to get along just fine. So those kinds of things, or your favorite food, or how do you spend time on vacation? Simple things make people feel like they matter, and relationships matter. Again, it's not the big stuff. The paycheck will get them in the door. What's going to keep them in there is you and the people you work with. This, in your resource, in your participant guide, this first line, this link to this TED Talk is amazing. She talks about stop trying to motivate your employees. I promise you, you're going to learn something new from Carrie that you have never considered before, and hopefully it will change your perceptions. Mark Murphy has written in Forbes how to bring out the best in your middle performers. He has all kinds of really engaging content. And the last thing is, let's stay in touch. I'm on LinkedIn. Please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. A little thing I did not say in the beginning is that my passion is really working in corrections. I happen to work in jails and in prisons in Texas, Mississippi, and in Florida. And I have the opportunity on a regular basis to see the change and the impact of what mentorship can do with inmates, kitchen employees, and the staff. So thank you for your participation. Please fill out your evaluation. If you hate me, tell me. If you liked it, great, whatever. I want feedback. Fill out the orange forms, turn that in, and on behalf of the organization, thank you for being here all week.